You won't believe what has been going on in the home of Todd Tucker, Riley Burruss, and their children. At first glance, this family seemed picture perfect, smiling on red carpets, laughing on reality TV, and living the type of glamorous life people often dream of. But behind the walls of their home, things were far more complicated. Their story is one filled with love, loyalty, jealousy, secrets, and painful truths that have shocked not just fans but even the family themselves. Let me take you back to the beginning. Riley Burruss, known and loved for her years on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, is no stranger to the spotlight. She is a Grammy-winning songwriter, a successful entrepreneur, and a woman who has built an empire out of her talent and determination. But even with all her success, her personal life has always carried challenges. When she met Todd Tucker, who worked behind the scenes in television production, it felt like a love story waiting to be written. The two grew close quickly, and eventually, they married, determined to create a family filled with love and stability. Together, Riley and Todd have 2 children, their son Ace, and their daughter Blaze, who was born through surrogacy. But that's only one part of the story. Both Riley and Todd also brought children from previous relationships into the marriage. Riley had her daughter Riley, whom fans have watched grow up on TV. Todd had his daughter Kaela, who has often been quiet but still present in their lives. On the surface, this blended family looked like it was working. They traveled together, celebrated milestones, and often shared glimpses of family life with the world. But the reality behind closed doors was very different. Anyone who has lived in a blended family knows that it takes more than just love to make things work. It takes balance, patience, and equal attention to everyone involved. For Riley and Todd, that balance was the hardest part. From the start, Riley had difficulty accepting Todd. She felt like his intentions weren't genuine. In Riley's eyes, Todd wasn't just focused on being a husband to her mother. She thought he was more interested in Riley's fame and wealth than in becoming a true father figure. Riley didn't trust him. And when trust is missing in a family, every small action can feel bigger than it really is. Things took a sharp turn when Riley surprised Riley with a luxury car for her birthday. For Riley, it was an act of love, her way of showing Riley that she appreciated her hard work and wanted to give her something special. But this gift created an earthquake in the family. Kaela, Todd's daughter, felt like she had been left out. While Riley was getting big gestures of love, Kaela felt ignored. She had already struggled with finding her place in this blended household, and the new car was the final straw. She couldn't help but wonder why Riley seemed to get all the attention while she was left on the sidelines. As you can imagine, this tension didn't stay private. Arguments at home spilled into the public eye. Fans on social media began choosing sides, criticizing the way Riley and Todd were raising their kids. Some people felt Riley was spoiled, while others felt Kaela had been overlooked. The more the family tried to keep things quiet, the louder the drama seemed to get. But the most shocking part came when Riley herself decided to speak out. Riley, who had never been shy about expressing her feelings, dropped a bombshell. She revealed that, in her eyes, Todd had always treated Kaela better than he treated her. She accused him of showing favoritism, of loving his daughter more deeply while keeping her, Riley, at a distance. Her words cut deep. Riley didn't hold back. She claimed that she could never understand why Todd treated her so differently from Kaela. Fans were stunned, but Todd and Riley were devastated. For Todd, it wasn't just an accusation, it was a direct attack on his role as a stepfather. Kaela, however, wasn't going to let her father face these accusations alone. She fired back at Riley, defending Todd with sharp, unapologetic words. Kaela insisted that her father had always tried to keep the family together, that he had done everything he could to show equal love. In Kaela's view, Riley was being unfair and self-centered. She told Riley to stop blaming others and start focusing on her own life and career. Her response wasn't just protective, it was personal. Kaela knew what her father had been through in life. She had seen his struggles, his hard work, and his attempts to hold the family together despite constant obstacles. But instead of calming things down, Kaela's defense only poured more fuel onto the fire. The battle between Riley and Kaela turned into a war of words, and soon, Riley escalated things even further. In a shocking interview, she admitted to spending thousands of Candy's money on parties and nightclubs, money her mother didn't even know she was using. This revelation shattered Candy. She had always trusted Riley, always believed she was guiding her daughter towards success. Now, that trust was broken. For Todd, the betrayal was just as painful. Not only was Riley accusing him of favoritism, but now she was openly disrespecting both him and her mother's hard-earned money. Fans couldn't believe what they were hearing. But Riley wasn't done. She went even further, claiming that Todd's recent health scare when he was admitted to the hospital was karma. In her words, he was being punished for the way he had treated her. Riley even admitted she had no plans to visit him in the hospital, a statement that left fans in disbelief. For Todd, hearing this from the girl he had tried to raise as his own was like being stabbed in the heart. At this point, it was no longer just family drama. It was a full-scale crisis. The internet exploded. Some people sided with Riley, saying she had every right to call out the way she felt neglected. Others stood firmly with Todd and Kaela, insisting that Riley was being ungrateful and disrespectful. And in the middle of it all was Candy, torn between her loyalty as a wife and her love as a mother. For years, Candy had been Riley's rock. She had raised her as a single mom before Todd came into the picture, and she had always defended her. But now, she was facing the hardest decision of her life. How could she support her daughter while also standing by her husband? How could she balance the needs of Riley and Kaela without tearing the entire family apart? As the drama continued, it became clear that this wasn't just about cars or money. This was about something much deeper: feelings of love, rejection, and the struggle to belong in a blended family. Riley felt like she was competing for her mother's attention. Kaela felt like she was competing for her father's. And both girls felt like they were constantly being measured against each other. That's the painful truth about blended families: love isn't always equally shared, even when parents try their best. Sometimes, one child feels left out. Sometimes, one feels favored. And when those feelings build up over years, they eventually explode. Fans watching from the outside couldn't look away. What started as private arguments turned into a public spectacle. Every word Riley spoke, every clapback from Kaela, every quiet reaction from Candy, and every frustrated sigh from Todd was analyzed, reposted, and debated online. This family wasn't just living through a storm, they were living through it under the world's microscope. And yet, despite all of this, there's still a question that lingers: who is really to blame? Is it Candy, for spoiling Riley and not setting boundaries? Is it Todd, for failing to balance his love equally between Riley and Kaela? Is it Riley, for letting jealousy and anger control her actions? Or Kaela, for firing back when maybe silence would have been the wiser choice? The truth is, it's not so simple. In blended families, everyone carries scars. Everyone brings their own pain, their own insecurities, their own need to feel valued. And when those needs clash, it creates exactly the type of chaos we're seeing unfold. Now, the Burruss Tucker family faces a crossroads. Riley has drawn her line in the sand. Kaela has stood her ground. Todd is left wounded, both physically and emotionally. And Candy is stuck in the middle, trying desperately to hold her family together before it completely falls apart. The drama is far from over. Every day, more details seem to come out, more accusations surface, and more fans take sides. But one thing is certain: this family's story is no longer just theirs. It has become a lesson for anyone who has ever struggled in a blended home, a reminder that love isn't always enough to heal old wounds, and that sometimes the hardest battles are fought not in public, but within the walls of our own homes. The situation inside the Burruss Tucker household was not only heartbreaking, it was almost impossible to untangle. Supporters could not understand how a daughter like Riley could turn her back on a man who was struggling with his health. Todd was fighting battles both in his body and in his home, yet instead of compassion, he faced accusations that cut straight to the soul. But just when it seemed like Todd had no one in his corner, his daughter Kaela stepped in. For years, Kaela had stayed quiet. She had watched arguments rise and fall, she had lived in Riley's shadow, and she had often chosen silence over conflict. But this time was different. She couldn't watch her father's name being dragged through the dirt any longer. Kaela's voice rose like a storm. Her words carried pain, but they also carried love. This wasn't just about defending her father, it was about protecting the only parent she had always known. Kaela's anger poured out, but behind it was years of bottled-up loyalty. She told Riley in no uncertain terms that Todd had never abandoned her. He had always tried to treat both girls equally, but Riley had been too focused on her own pain to notice. Kaela pointed out that while Riley accused Todd of neglect, she ignored the countless sacrifices he had made to keep the family together. She reminded Riley that being loved doesn't always come in the form of gifts or praise, it sometimes comes in discipline, in quiet presence, in trying to keep a family afloat when everything else feels broken. For Kaela, speaking up was like breaking chains. After years of silence, she was finally saying what had been building in her chest. But her words did not calm the storm, they deepened it. Riley heard every word. And though she was shaken, she wasn't ready to surrender. To her, Kaela's defense of Todd sounded like denial. Riley felt unseen, unheard, and unwanted for so long that nothing Kaela said could erase the pain. She admitted, openly, that she had been fighting for something most people take for granted, a safe place in her own family. Every word out of Kaela's mouth only fueled her sense that she had been robbed of love and recognition. The tragedy was clear. Both daughters were speaking from wounds. Kaela was fighting to keep her father's honor intact, while Riley was fighting to be acknowledged as more than an afterthought. Neither girl was lying, both were carrying truths shaped by their experiences. But when personal pain becomes public theater, the consequences multiply. By now, social media had turned into a courtroom. Fans and followers weren't just watching, they were judging. People picked sides like it was a sport. Some defended Kaela, praising her for standing by her father. Others supported Riley, insisting that her pain was valid, that years of favoritism had left scars. Candy, the matriarch, was left paralyzed in the middle. She had always defended Riley, but now silence seemed safer than words. Her quiet presence made fans question everything. Was she refusing to see the dysfunction because she was too close to Riley? Or was she protecting her daughter from even harsher criticism by refusing to engage? Her silence spoke louder than any statement could. And here is where things took a darker turn. The arguments about cars, money, and even Todd's hospital visit were no longer about material things. They were symbols of something much deeper, love, or the lack of it. Riley felt Todd never loved her enough. Kaela felt no one ever saw her at all. Todd struggled to balance his love between them. And Candy, despite her efforts, had failed to notice how resentment was slowly poisoning her home. Each member of the family was hurting. Each one was crying out for validation in their own way. But instead of listening, they were shouting past each other. The walls between them grew taller, and with millions of eyes watching, those walls became nearly impossible to break down. And yet, beneath all of this chaos, there was something even more painful, the truth that everyone carried a share of the blame. Candy had tried to bridge the gap, but in doing so, she may have spoiled Riley without realizing how that affected Kaela. Todd had worked hard to keep peace, but his attempts often missed the heart of Riley's pain. Riley had suffered neglect, but her way of expressing it had caused more destruction than healing. And Kaela, though loyal, had fought with anger rather than empathy. It wasn't just one person's fault. It was all of them. That's the tragedy of blended families. Everyone fights for love, but nobody realizes that the fight itself is pulling them further apart. As fans continued to weigh in, it became clear that this was more than just a reality TV scandal. People saw themselves in the Burruss-Tucker family. Children who felt ignored by a parent related to Riley. Kids who felt overshadowed by a step-sibling related to Kaela. Parents who struggled to balance blended households related to Candy and Todd. What looked like celebrity gossip was actually a mirror for millions of families dealing with the same pain, but behind closed doors. The most haunting question remained: could this family ever heal? Healing would not come easy. The words exchanged weren't just arguments, they were scars. Every accusation of favoritism, every confession of betrayal, every denial of love would leave marks that would take years to fade. The public nature of their pain only deepened the wounds. It's hard to forgive when millions of strangers are echoing your pain back at you, amplifying it with every tweet, every post, every headline. Still, hope lingered in the cracks. Families have broken before and found ways to rebuild. But rebuilding requires honesty, humility, and the willingness to see beyond one's own hurt. Could Riley soften her heart enough to recognize Todd's efforts? Could Kaela learn to extend compassion to her stepsister instead of only anger? Could Candy find a way to balance loyalty to her daughter with loyalty to her husband? These questions remain unanswered. What we do know is that this family has reached a crossroads. The choices they make next will decide whether they remain divided or find their way back to one another. And the world is still watching. Every update is followed like the next episode in a series. Fans wait to see if Todd's health improves, if Riley extends an olive branch, if Kaela's anger cools, and if Candy finally speaks out with clarity. Nobody knows if peace is possible, but everyone is invested in seeing how this story ends. And maybe that's what makes this so gripping. It's not just their story. It's ours. It's the story of every family that has wrestled with love and pain, loyalty and betrayal, silence and truth. It's the reminder that even in the brightest homes, shadows can fall. Whether this family will ever mend is uncertain. But one thing is clear, they will never be the same again. The trust has been broken, the words have been spoken, and the scars will remain. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes healing takes more than time. It takes effort, forgiveness, and a willingness to start over. So now, as the dust begins to settle, the world waits. Will the Burruss-Tucker family rise from this chaos stronger, or will they collapse under the weight of resentment? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, this story is far from over. The most shocking chapters are still ahead, and you won't want to miss what comes next.